Welcome back to the Granny's Filming Studio. We have Katie behind the camera today, and I am Kim, and we are Granny's Legacy Patterns. And today we're going to do our final mini class on our Out of the Blue project. And so I think Katie's zooming in on the quilt here. This is the final time for questions and answers, so we hope that if you have any questions on this project, you'll send them in to us because we will definitely help you with this project. So we are talking about the quilting, the finishing, and the blocking. And oftentimes, if you've been with Katie and I before, you know about our blocking procedure. You know that that's the last step that you do not skip. So we quilted this. We used a thin batting, and this is Thermore batting. It's a polyester batting. If you choose to use a wool batting, I think that would be lovely too. But it's like maybe 1/8 of an inch thick. It has a very low loft, and with the white, it works well underneath the white wool. So if we would have used the wool batting, which I would have chosen to, you would get a little bit more of a creamy, wintry white look with your project. So I layered it. We have on our website available to you this quilt backing. We sell it, and we thought that it added a nice little finish to the quilt with the navy binding. And you can see I quilted very little. Now, I did this on my domestic machine, and I was going to bring my foot in, but it's a clear foot, and it's about this big around. It's round. And you can get them for your machine. It's a hopping foot, and what's really nice about that, it's so large that when you go over the wool applique, it doesn't snag it. It doesn't snag your stitching or anything like that. So you can do this on your domestic machine. Release some pressure on your pressure foot, and then lower your feed dogs and just scoot right around each applique piece. Now, I do not know if the camera's picking up that quilting, but it kind of is beautiful from the back too. My grandsons were here yesterday, and they thought the back was beautiful. So I do too. So I will show you, maybe Katie can get in close up, and we can kind of show an area here that I'll just kind of tip. Maybe we'll start with this one up here. And so I just went very close around the edge, very close. When it came to these, I just used the right down the middle of the stem stitch. I went down one side and back the other. Now I'll tip it over, and you can see the other side, and you'll see really close up how I did that. So it was so simple using that hopping foot, and I was not real, I just wanted to get it so that the applique popped out a little bit. Now you of course can quilt it any way you want. We just want you to be encouraged that if you wanted to try and quilt it on your domestic machine, it can be done, and it can be done very easily. So I'm going to flip it over once more time. You can see how I went just around here, and I didn't try to go in and out of these embroidery. I just kind of skipped around it. I went up and back. I did go in and out of the antennae because I wanted those to kind of stand out, but I'm going to tip it over again, and you can see how simple the quilting is on that. So if you're brave, if you've had some practice, if not, practice a little bit, but I think it could be done on your domestic machine if you chose.
I've done a little practicing before, kind of if you want to practice doing stuff like this. One time I just bought a panel at a quilt shop. I went and bought, I don't know, they're like 30 by 30 by 40 or something. I bought a panel and made a quilt sandwich, and then I just practiced going around the flowers and the stems on the panel.
That's a really good suggestion to practice. Then we've bound it, and we do have a binding tutorial on our website, so you could, if you're not sure or you want to really remind yourself how to do a binding, you can go to our website and look at the binding tutorial. And then I think that the very last step that Katie and I talk about over and over and over again is blocking. So what I did to block, I'm going to flip this over. I don't want to scare the camera, but I laid it flat on my bed. I took the bedspread off and I just laid it flat on the bed. I see I have a little bird's nest there. I didn't get snipped off, but okay, so I laid it so it was completely flat on the bed. And then if the corners weren't quite square, I pinned them square right into my mattress. And I pinned everything square, and then I put my iron on heavy steam. And I steamed the whole project back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and just steamed everywhere. And then I left it. Leave the pins, leave everything, and let it sit. And I let this sit for at least 2 hours this morning. I did this, and I wanted it cool and dry. I would have preferred to have blocked it last night, but I wanted to sleep in my bed. But however, leave it cool and dry. Otherwise it wants to go back to being the naughty shape rather than a nice square shape. And when it's cool and dry, it really makes a huge difference on the finished project. And so you can see our finished project. If I could back up one step, I forgot to talk about the seams. Before I quilted this, some of the seams kind of pulled in a little bit. So from the back of the quilt, before it was sandwiched, so just my quilt top, I put it face down on my ironing board, and I pinned those out to where they were supposed to be so the edges were square. And then I steamed that seam from the back, not from the front. If you steam it from the front, the seam allowances will pop up and you'll have little ridges.
So you just blocked it into shape.
I blocked it into the shape before I quilt sandwiched it too. So that was one thing I wanted to talk about, and I skipped that step. But so you can see our Out of the Blue. I'll hold it up straight so the camera can get a good picture of it. I think I'm pleased with it, and I hope you're pleased with your finished project also. So that's our Out of the Blue from Granny's Legacy Patterns. And we thank you for joining us on this adventure. It has been so fun. Happy stitching.